Good evening, brother. Tonight's report we've called The Sophistry of the Enemy. Here's the well-known 144,000 holding the four winds chart. And this is one of the charts that Brother Hodoff made. It's very, very beautifully made. They've got the four angels holding the four winds on the corners of the earth. And then these angels are instructed to start hurting, but not until the ceiling of the 144,000 is complete, at which time these angels let go of the winds, which signify a time of trouble such as never was upon the whole earth, and also that these angels are let loose to hurt, as it were, those that God commands to be so done. And then, of course, over here on the bottom right, we see the pictorial representation of the first fruits, Revelation 7, verse 1 to 4. And, you can see a big crowd here, and even you've got little children. So the inspired chart does show that the 144,000 will include little children, as the pictorial representation shows. So some people have asked, well, is 144,000 just man, or is it man and woman, and so forth? Well, it's going to be both sexes, man and women, and little children included as well. Okay, so we've prayed. We ask that you do the same. And we're going to look at this report today called The Sophistry of the Enemy. All right, in General Conference Special, that's what GCS stands for. It's a supplemental track from Victor Hodoff, page 7. It reads, "The old devil has already put all his forces to work, piping pleasing tunes to lure truth seekers to climb aboard his golden bandwagon. Its glittering tinsel of truth is already beguiling many with his wares, while his captains and generals are at the top of their voices shouting their hallelujahs, Holy Ghost, gift of healing, gift of tongues, gift of miracles, and all the rest, although the entire fanfare is devoid even of a spark of life. Every wind of doctrine will be blowing. False revivals and reformations will be at their peak. Everything that can be done will be done to distort the truth and thus distract and dishearten believers and draw their attention to something other than the message of Elijah." So here's a forecast, brethren, that in these last days, the devil will put all his forces to work. And you see in the red there, one of the keys is he wants false doctrine, wrong doctrine taught amongst us as a people, as amongst those striving to be that, in that 144,000 number. And the specific subject that we're going to look at is the subject of the 144,000. It's going to play a pivotal role here in these last days, and this subject needs to be looked at and zeroed in on because of the importance of this subject. All right, the scriptures number those in the first fruits, so we can get an idea how many is going to be in the first fruits harvest, and that's found in Revelation 14, verse 3 to 4. "And they sung, as it were, a new song before the throne and before the four beasts and the elders, and no man could learn that song but the 144,000, which were redeemed from the earth. These are they which were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb wheresoever he goeth. These are redeemed from among men, being the firstfruits unto God and unto the Lamb." So here we see that as present truth believers, we understand that there's going to be two fruit periods. It's going to be the first fruit period, and then what's going to be called the second fruit period, the harvest. The second fruit harvest and the first fruit harvest. And in that first fruit harvest is going to be 144,000 coming from his church today, the Seventh-day Adventist. This is how many the number shows is going to be coming from that first fruit harvest. We know it's a very, very solemn solemn number, because when we think of the 25 or 23 million Seventh-day Adventists, we can see that, oh my, this is very, very, very low number, brethren. But as we've shown many times, and the message itself shows, when the flood came upon the world, and many people thought there was quite a lot of millions alive at that time, how many survived? 8 people. In the days of Lot, in that big city, which many say was even 1 million at that time, how many survived? 3 people. And then, of course, in the Exodus, where it was again 1 million or so people coming out of Egypt. And how many survived into the promised land over the age of 20? 2 people. So we see in his history, brethren, that it's a sad thing, but the Lord does not care about quantity. He wants quality. If you're with him, if you're for him, and you love him, you're going to make it. Now, just a personal disclosure here. Yours truly came into the shepherd's rod message, the Lord's prophesied Micah 6:9 message, by obtaining the following CD. And this can be obtained from the group called Mountaindale. And they're in New York. And they're one of the main rod organizations. And they're doing a great work obtaining, literature packages and so forth, and sending them out to the brethren all around the world. So this is the particular CD, if you have a chance, can be obtained by the Mountaindale Association. And this led yours truly to the understanding of this message. And so it's beautifully made. The presenter is a brother named Glenroy Matthews. And so we highly suggest that you obtain this CD if you can. All right, so now we're going to ask the question, what is the importance of the 144,000? Well, we don't tell you what it is. The rod itself says so. In Preface, Shepherd's Rod, Volume 1, it says, "It is the intention of this book to reveal the truth of the 144,000 mentioned in Revelation 7. But the chief object of this publication is to bring about a reformation among God's people." And then, of course, in Shepherd Rod Volume 1, page 14, it says, "If we do not understand the subject of the 144,000, we may not be sealed." Did you read that, brethren? We may not be sealed, for it would be worthless to understand it after the sealing, just as it would be of no value to understand the beast and his image after his work on earth is finished. The primary purpose of the shepherd's rod is to unlock the long-concealed mystery concerning the ever-challenging and much-discussed subject of the 144,000, Revelation 14:1. With the central object in view of bringing about among God's people that thorough reformation foretold by the Spirit of Prophecy, Testimonies, Volume 8, page 251. Its dominant doctrinal concern being the truth of the 144,000 and a correct understanding of it being a what? Life and death matter to all. The rod unfolds it from several different angles, each urging the denomination to prepare for the glorious deliverance of the saints and against the inglorious destruction of the sinners, as foretokened by the marking and slaying recorded in Ezekiel 9. And that very, very powerful reference is found in the Shepherd's Rod track, page 5 to 6. Now, the Shepherd's Rod track is different than the Shepherd's Rod volumes. The volumes are 1 and 2. The track is the small little pocket literature that comes from the message as well. Okay, the enemy will try everything conceivable to confuse, becloud, cover up the truth, especially on the subject of the 144,000. So here we see, brethren, our enemy is going to try to tell us something other than the truth about this subject. And so if we're aware of that, we're going to be so much more prepared, so much more enlightened to his schemes. And so it's very important to remember that he's not going to sit by and let us teach the truth of this subject. Okay, now this is a part put in there because we're going to be giving this presentation to actual Mountaindale group in this coming week. So we'll move forward. Both prophets began their ministry with this subject, 144,000. So here we see the well-known pictorial chart of Zechariah 4. And after you've learned the symbolisms, you know that this main pipe over here and this main pipe over here represent two of the end-time mediums. We have the quote in the next slide for you, but these two right here are the prophets that are able to go into the trees, the New Testament and the Old Testament, pull out all the prophecies and the interpretations and put them into what's known as the golden bowl of prophecy. So this is why that symbolism in Zechariah 4 is so properly and beautifully understood today, is because the prophet was able, unlike all the prior prophets in history, to go in there and interpret this prophecy for us today. So since 1884, only two mediums since then. The two golden pipes which carry the golden oil from the trees to the bowl are the only two mediums which God has employed since 1844 to interpret the scriptures. And that can be found in 5 symbolic code number 1 to 5, page 3. And so when we know this, we know that those two mediums that God has called in the final days, those two prophets, started with our subject, 144,000. And the first one was Sister Ellen White. In early writings, she went into that dream of the 144,000, page 14 to 20. And then, of course, the rod at the very beginning, first book of its ministry, Shepherd's Rod, Volume 1, page 13 to 38, also discussed the subject of the 144,000. So we can see that the Lord began both prophet and prophetess work with this subject of the 144,000. Again, reiterating the importance of it. But our adversary's got substitutions for everything that's important for us. And we'll take a look at 3 of the main ones. Number 1, marriage. He takes it and perverts it, includes gay unions and other abominations. The Bible is very firm about this marriage. It's got to be between man and wife, and it's got to be without adultery and so forth. And this is why marriage is very important. In fact, in Malachi, the Lord says he hates divorce. So it's very, very precious to him. And Satan has taken this subject, and today we know all the different abominations that come from the so-called marriage union. Number 2, the Sabbath. He takes it and teaches Sunday as the day of the Lord. Well, we're well known as Seventh-day Adventists, the perverted teaching that Christendom has today from Satan. And that is to take the true Sabbath and change it into Sunday. And that's what he's done over the centuries. Now, the third one, many people, especially present-truth believers, may or may not be aware, but the teaching of the 144,000 is a specialty, okay? Now, how is it his specialty? Well, he tries to teach that there is more than 144,000 who are saved and sealed from the church purification, known as those with teaching, brethren. So he does have his substitution teaching for the 144,000, and that is known as those with teaching. We'll get more into that, and you'll become more familiar. All right, so let's talk a little bit of the history of this teaching. Sister Bonnie Smith, she's a living pioneer, 92 years young today, said that those with teaching came from M.J. Bingham. Now, we personally heard that from her on several occasions because we wanted to know her history and as to did Brother Hoddle teach this doctrine that there's going to be additionally more than 144,000 sealed and escaping from the church judgment. Was that something on the camp that Sister Bonnie Smith remembers him teaching? And of course, she's adamant. She says, no way did he ever teach such thing. She said that teaching came from M.J. Bingham. Many of you are familiar with this gentleman. He was the first secretary of this on the camp for Brother Houteff, and subsequently, after Brother Houteff died, he became a leader among the regrouped rod members. At the beginning, he was, more or less well established in the message, but after a short period of time, from the death of Brother Houteff, he began to add his own strange fire doctrines, and, we know the story from him today. Don Adair, who was a student of Bingham's studies of his teaching, and became the foremost spreader of it in Davidia. This those with teaching became one of his hallmark teachings. It led to the breakup of brethren from Salem. Both Mountaindale and Waco brethren did not agree with Adair's teaching on this particular subject and split off in 1986 to form Mountaindale Association. In 1991, Mountaindale had an internal split amongst its own group, and some of the people went back and began Waco Association. But the key here is that these brethren, many of our leaders today, come from Salem, and the main teacher there was Don Adair, who was a student of M.J. Bingham. And he learned those with teaching from M.J. Bingham, and he became obsessed with this teaching and wrote about it in countless reports, and tried to show this prophecy was showing that there's going to be more. And he just did so much dastardly work, we hate to say it, among Davidia today, that those with teaching lay at the feet of this gentleman, Don Adair. He's one of the main reasons why we have this false teaching of those with. All right, so what are some of the basics of those with teaching? Well, number one, there will be more than 144,000 sealed and saved from Ezekiel 9 church purification. Number two, they take approximately 10 to 12 of the main references from the rod that seem, I quote, seem to say there will be more than 144,000 sealed and saved from the SDA purification. However, many are taken out of context. And we'll show an example of White House Recruiter, page 46, in a future slide here. Number three, they side with the minority of references against the majority. For instance, there is about 25 to 30 references saying only 144,000 escape the Ezekiel 9 judgment. Not one reference ever says more escape. So this is just one angle that you can prove the folly of this teaching. Because obviously, if there's going to be more than 144,000 escaping, we would find reference to that effect. But you can't find one reference, brother, as opposed to the 20 or 30 that you can find only 144,000 escape. Now, this is very key because the word escape as a word search is very key to knowing about the church judgment. Obviously, if the church judgment comes from Ezekiel 9 onto the SDA church, we're going to have to escape the slaying angels that Ezekiel 9 talks about. And so it's very key to know about that. All right, so which associations teach to those with? Well, number one, you have Basin Association. Of course, that's the M.J. Bingham Association. And we've had discussions with the son, Brother Trevor, and he is not 100% committed, at least to us, that he believes in those with. But at this point, I think the association has got a handle on the teaching away from Brother Trevor. Maybe Brother Trevor is supportive of that, but at least to us, it doesn't seem like he's 100% committed to his father's teaching of those with. Nevertheless, this association as a whole teaches this. Number two, Lennox Sam, Wave Sheaf Association. Of course, we've had videos and so forth about this gentleman who really is probably the number one perverted false teacher among the present truth believers today. Very, very sneaky man. Very, very, what's the word for it? Diabolical in his teaching, because he teaches 95% truth and then slides in 5% or so error. And one of the big errors, excuse me, is the teaching of those with. All right, number 3, Salem Association. Again, that's Don Adair's longtime association that came into existence in the late 60s, early 70s, and is the primary association that supports and teaches this teaching. Mountaindale and Waco do not endorse this teaching. So it's important to remember that the two big organizations in the Shepherd's Rod movement, Mountaindale and Waco, do not teach this, nor they endorse it. Of course, there may be some offshoot members within the organizations there that do support this teaching, but that according to our knowledge, is few and far between. All right, so let's take a look example of the taking statements out of context. Number one example here would be White House Recruiter, page 46. Now, if you read this on a standalone statement, there's no doubt about it that you can get yourself thinking, well, there's going to be more than 144,000, because it says, as present truth adherents in the first fruit period, may God help us, brother and sister, to be either among or along with the 144,000 first fruits. The first fruits, 144,000. It is left to everyone himself to determine his own destiny. So you can see that when you strip something from its context and look straight at it for what it says, obviously you can say to yourself, yes, there's going to be more than 144,000, because it says among or along with the first fruits. However, let's look at the context. This is the prior paragraph. But if you make your decision for the better, then you will receive God's mark. Ezekiel 9, Testimonies and Ministers, page 445. Okay, let's stop right there at the first highlight area. Now, then you will receive God's mark. Well, he gives the specific references to know what this mark is. And if you go to Ezekiel 9, you know that if you don't get this mark, you're going to be slain. You have to have the mark when the angel goes through the church. That's the first one. The second reference is Testimonies to Ministers, page 445. Now, when you go and read that reference, you realize Ezekiel and John in Revelation 7 saw the same event. In other words, they saw the sealing of the 144,000. And John definitely numbers those that were sealed as 144,000. You see, brethren, John saw it from one angle. Ezekiel saw it from the other. Ezekiel saw what happened to those that didn't get sealed. John saw the number of those that got sealed in the church, 144,000. So that's why the rod explains clearly that you need to understand this marking by knowing about those two references. In your foreheads be accounted faultless before his judgment throne, and be privileged either to come up in the resurrection of Daniel 12:2 or stand aforehand with the Lamb on Mount Zion 14:1. Again, we see the identification of what the rod is talking about here. It's saying you have one or two choices. You're either going to die and be counted worthy to be raised up in that special resurrection, therefore go along with the 144,000, or you're going to be one of the 144,000 and stand with the Lamb, Revelation 14:1. Thence to carry God's message to all the nations and bring all your brethren for an offering to the house of the Lord, Isaiah 66:19 and 20. you will become part of the first fruits, the nucleus of the kingdom church, and the token of the second fruits of the living of those whom you subsequently bring in. So this is the prior paragraph, brethren, that, let's go back and read it here. It then says, as present truth adheres in the first fruit period, may God help us, brother, to be either among or along with the first fruits. 144,000 is left to everyone himself to determine it. So we can see why the rod says this way, because it's saying you're either going to be among the resurrected in Daniel 12:2, which is going to be along with, or you're going to be one that's going to stand with the Lamb. So clear, brethren. But this is an example of how the enemy, and when I say enemy, I'm talking about a lot of his servants, those that profess present truth, trick us with this, those with teaching, and say, aha, see, there's one of the references that prove it. Well, not so fast. It's a false pretext. All right, so let's close here with our summary. And we are told to go by the weight of evidence. There are about 85 to 90% references that support only 144,000 sealed and escaping the Ezekiel 9 church judgment versus the 10 to 15 that seem to say otherwise, even though we know they're taken out of context. When we say the weight of evidence, we cannot come to any other conclusion than what the message teaches, such as the three very weightful references. We've taken just three, brethren, but like I said before, there's at least 30, if not more, close to 40 references that prove the point that there's going to be only 144,000 sealed. And the number one reference that we want to show you is found in 3 Answer, page 26. Notwithstanding the fact, do you see that, brethren? Fact. Well, we can't wrestle with the word fact. That in the closing work for the Seventh-day Adventist denomination, only 144,000 are to be sealed according to Testimonies, volume 3, page 266. So again, the rod calls it a fact according to inspiration, that only 144,000 are to be sealed. Very powerful. And then the second quote is found in track 5, page 103. But now the message in the shepherd's rod reveals that the 144,000 who are to be without guile in their mouth, the appointed number of first fruit servants to be sealed, where? In the church. You can't get any more clear than this, brethren. The appointed number. It doesn't say 144,728. It doesn't say 263,400. It doesn't say that the 144,000 and those with the appointed number? No, it just says 144,000. We have to leave inspiration at where it stands. We cannot be adding and subtracting to it, brethren. Are to be separated from the unconsecrated, and the number to be sealed being much smaller than the number of membership, it sadly reminds us that therein are many terrors. Very powerful, brethren. Track 5, page 103. And our last quote. Since those that escape the slaughter, the 144,000, shall bring all your brethren, all those who shall be saved in the time of the loud cry, into the house of the Lord, then it follows that those who escape are the ones who finish the work. The reason they are called the servants of God, Revelation 7:3. Again, this reference can be found in track 1, page 23. Again, brethren, the subject on the 144,000 is really came into clear focus when you do an escape search. Okay, you'll find that there's just no references whatsoever to lead one to think that any other number escapes than 144,000. In fact, this is one of the arguments that I've shown to Brother Trevor Bingham, and it seems to be very eye-opening to him. At least his response back to me was. So anyway, this concludes our study, brethren, that the sophistry of the enemy is at work, and we have to be aware of all his little tricks and his changing God's word so that we may not be sealed. We may fall for this terrible teaching that has been promulgated for us for decades now. starting with M.J. Bingham and promoted vastly in the vineyard by Don Adair. So we hope you've been blessed and you have a little bit more truth now about this teaching. And until next time, may the God of Israel continue to guide you into all truth. Amen.